The next type of conversion we're going to talk about is called explicit conversions. Now, explicit conversions, they require a type of casting operator, and what it looks like is it's opening and closing parentheses with the data type that you want to convert it to inside of it, and you have to put this in front of the value or the other variable that you're actually converting. So you'll see a better example of this once we get into the code. The big thing about explicit conversions is information might be lost. This is key. You can lose precision, you can lose numbers, you can actually lose a lot of stuff in explicit conversions. And so that's why the actual IDE kind of tries to not get you to do it, and that's why you have to specifically convert it. And here's kind of an example. So say I have the first Spider-Man comic book. So I'm going to create this variable for what its value. So int first Spider-Man equals $14 million. So I'm going to store this inside of an int variable. Now, remember, ints can hold quite a large value. So if I try to convert this to a short, will this work? And the answer is not really the way you would actually think it would, because the maximum value of a short is only 32,000. So it kind of would never hold the value of 14 million. And the same thing for an S byte, a signed byte, right? That only has 127. So it's a little bit unusual, and we'll actually show you what happens to the number when it goes back. But first, I'm going to show you an example of an explicit conversion. We're back inside of our IDE, inside of our file called variable conversions. Now, let's go ahead and put a comment for ourselves, so we know this is the start of our explicit conversions, right? And remember to be careful and watch for data loss. These are super important, okay? So anytime we're changing numbers into either a smaller number or we are changing a decimal place to an integer or anything like that, we have got to be careful with it. So let's take a look. One of these examples is, what if we convert a double to an integer? Now remember, a double actually has a period and it has decimal places after it, right? So let's go ahead and try this. We're going to declare a double, so lowercase double. We're going to name it, we'll just name it x. They're not very descriptive, but right now we don't really need it to be descriptive. Equals, we'll put a value of 1234.56. So 1234.56. Now let's go ahead and console.writeline this out just to make sure everything's working. Inside of it, let's just put the value x. We'll run our program and see that this right here, remember these are from the last video, this one right here is the value of our number x. All right, so now let's go ahead and convert it. So the first thing we need to do is declare our new type. So we're going to declare int, and we'll call this one x converted. So equals, and now this is where the casting comes into play. What we have to do is tell the computer, yes, we know what we're doing, and here is why. So we have to go open and closing parentheses, and inside of it, we need to put the variable type we want to convert to, int again. And then in the outside of it, you need to put the name of the variable we're converting, so x, and then a semicolon. And what this does is it tells the computer, I know that the value after that might give us problems and it might not work correctly, but do it anyway. So it's kind of like the override code for it. Now let's go ahead and console.writeline and see what this does. So inside of here, we're going to put the value of x converted. Now when we run it, we can see that all it did was chop off all the decimal places. So 1234.56. Now the interesting thing is it does not round the number, okay? Because if you notice, 0.56 should go up to 1235, okay? So all it does is basically chop off the part that it can't handle and convert what it can do. All right, so let's give you another example, and this one is going to be more strange and kind of like the one we talked about with the value of the comic book. So this, we're going to convert a large number to, let's say, an S byte. So here's what we're going to do. If we have a value, and we can just kind of make this up, we'll just say an integer. So int, and let's do, it doesn't really matter, let's call it z, equals, and we'll say 130. So an integer is 130. Integers can be fairly larger, but that's okay, because they also can be smaller. So int z equals 130. And then what we're going to do is we're going to convert it. So first things I want you to see is we're going to create the variable. So s byte, and then a space. Let's call this one z converted, and equals, and here we go again. So we need to do the casting. So open and closing parentheses, back inside of it, the data type we want to go to, s byte, outside of the parentheses, the name of the actual variable, z, and then a semicolon. Now, I do want to actually console.log out both of these, so we're going to do a console.writeLine, open, close, and a semicolon. First we'll put z, and then I want to make a console.writeLine. Inside of the parentheses, let's put z converted. All right, so 130 converted to a s byte. Here we go. 130 becomes negative 126. So this is one of those times when you have to really understand what's going on and giving us the 126, because if you look at it, it really makes no sense, right? Because you're like, how does 130 go into 126? Negative 126 at that. Because you would think that if it tops out at 127, it would just give you a positive 127 and then throw away the rest. But here's actually what's going on. Inside of our s byte, an assigned byte has the values of negative 128 to 127. And if we convert this 130 to an s byte, what actually is going on is the numbers after 127 go back around all the way down to the bottom and then continue back up again. So the way it actually works is we take 130, the number we want to convert, subtract the largest number we can possibly get, which is positive 127, which gives us leftover of 3. Now, if we have all the numbers between negative 128 and positive 127, kind of laid out on the board when I just did the last 4, right? And we start at 128, if we go 3 numbers up, that gives us negative 126. And that is how we get the value of the converted variable. Now, sometimes you would want to do this if you're counting back over, but normally explicit casting, you really have to have a good reason to do it this way.